and testified yesterday before the Senate Homeland Security Committee on immigration policy. Ken, thank you so much for being here. So President-elect Trump, as we know, campaigned on the promise of launching the largest deportation program of criminals in the history of America on day one of his presidency. So what does this actually look like now that he's just a few days from taking office?
Right, just this coming Monday. So, well, as he said, he'll launch it on day one. And I think what you'll see is among those executive orders that Priscilla was talking about will include at least one, maybe more, directed to ramping up the deportation effort so that they're targeting numerical goals in the millions, far beyond what any recent president has done. Really, you'd have to go all the way back to Eisenhower to find anything of similar scale. I think that's what they have in mind. That's what they've projected. There's every reason to think this president is serious about it. And you hear Governor Noem rather kind of calmly and systematically talk about, yes, we're going to implement the president's agenda. This is a priority area. And that means it's going to get extra attention from the president and extra push and political capital. And she's going to be at the operational head of that. There was some back and forth with Senator Kim about her interacting with Tom Homan, the border czar. Of course, Joe Biden theoretically had a border czar, but she didn't do anything. It's part of why she lost the race for president. And while one can understand
for the Central American countries, DHS, the head of DHS was responsible for the border. But I know that was a big talking point.
Please don't whitewash what they were doing. President Biden made her the border czar to cover everything, and she did almost nothing and hardly ever even went to the border. You're going to see it's going to be from yin to yang in the Trump administration relative to what we saw in the Biden administration. And Kristi Noem will be on point for operationalizing these promises. They are big promises, but they're achievable.
So there's many parts of this, many layers, right? It costs money to deport someone, right? I mean, in 2016, the estimate was around 11,000, not including transport. You have the economic part of this, the potential inflation. You have the potential loss of revenue because, those who are here illegally also pay taxes in the billions, right? How do you account for all of that?
Any prediction?
Well, they cost a whole lot more than they pay in. And I think that's pretty well established by a lot of different entities. So the idea that we're somehow losing money by deporting people who are breaking our laws strikes me as a bit silly, frankly. And it doesn't bear up under the numbers. I would also point out that when you limit and close in as close as you can on zero to mass illegal immigration, which is typically unskilled labor, you create job opportunities and wage growth for poor American people. We saw this in 2019. Again, the data bears this out. The people who will benefit the most from a strong and successful Donald Trump immigration policy will be the poor people of America, American citizens who are poor. We're going to see more of that as time goes on. I also think in terms of the cost, you do raise an excellent point. Nothing happens without putting effort in, and effort includes partly money. One of the ways to achieve what Mitt Romney famously called self-deportation is to strictly limit work permits to those who have proven their legal presence in the United States, combined with shifting what Homeland Security investigators from their wide array of duties today to focusing overwhelmingly, that's 5,000 agents, overwhelmingly on worksite enforcement that includes criminal charges to American business operators who are exploiting illegal aliens to improve their profits, their bottom line, but also denying Americans job opportunities.
Well, I think the question, too, for these companies is, if the workers they're relying on who are here illegally were deported, would they have to pay more for American workers, and would that be passed down to the consumer? Of course, all of this is part of the conversation. I do want to ask you, though, as you sort of lay out this scenario of, if their first target is a criminal who is here illegally, right? And I think the estimate is about 8% of the 11 million here illegally have criminal convictions. And that criminal is in a home with others who are here illegally, a family, for example, with small kids who are in school, or dreamers, for example. And we know that Donald Trump has said he's open to figuring out ways to keep dreamers here. What do you do in that situation?
Well, as a simple matter of efficiency, you deport everybody you come across who's here illegally. If the folks in Congress want to make a legislative arrangement that addresses a certain category of people, for instance, the ones in DACA, then they can go ahead and do that. And maybe they should do just that if they want to make a deal on that. But until that day comes, those folks are here illegally. And the Obama administration and the Biden administration's efforts to create less illegal categories of aliens is not something that should be tolerated by allowing them to not be part of the deportation effort. Those folks should be deported just as much as everybody else should. But to your original point, if you go to deport a criminal alien, by which we mean someone who committed an additional crime in this country, if you're in the House and you identify 5 other people who are here illegally, the Biden administration has not deported those people. As a simple matter of efficiency and to drive down costs, they should be immediately put into the system for deportation. That's just simple math, and it saves money as opposed to costing money.
All right. Well, we appreciate you coming on to give your perspective. Ken Cuccinelli, thank you for your time.
Good to be with you.
We'll be right back.